Do you know what these are? What modal verbs are? No. Okay. So what are some modal verbs? Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yes, but don't ever use this word shall. It's basically not used. Okay. I better just tell you. All right. So yeah, will is another one. Shall, it is one, but it's basically not used. This word is really not used. So, I mean, can you make a sentence with shall? Yeah, you should say, well, yeah, you just don't, okay? Just don't make sentences with shall. It's not used. The meaning is not clear. It's not used in writing either. It's just not. It's like it's kind of a dead word. It's yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. They're a little bit behind. They're a little bit behind with those books. They don't know what's going to come back into use and what's going to be used less or more. Yeah. For you, for practical purposes, don't use this. Okay. So anyway, what are the other ones? Can, could, will, would, shall, also may, might, and must. So these are all of the um, these are all of the real modal verbs. Now we have some other words or phrases that are called, sometimes they're called semi-modals, and they have the same kind of meaning, and they also have the same kind of mechanics in the constructions as modal verbs sometimes. So have to is a semi-modal. That's have to obligation, like you have to do your homework. Ought to, that's a semi-modal. It's like should. That means basically like should, ought to. Spelled like that, it sounds like ought to, sounds like OT. Well, we'll learn about must in a second. Um, no, let's learn about that. I don't recommend you use must for that. Use have to in that kind of situation, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes. All right, so have to, ought to, need to. There are some others, but anyway, we're not going to make a complete list here. Just know that there's some other words that have the same kind of function, and same meaning. I mean, and they also have the same mechanics. Like we need to form them in the same way. We'll see some examples of that later. So, what is interesting about modals? What's different about modal verbs than other verbs? Do you know? Did you ever learn? Do you remember? Yeah. Why do we make a special category? Why is there a special category for these verbs? Well, if you know, if you remember. No, don't tell me what they mean. Tell me what the difference is between, yeah, why do we make a special category for modal verbs? Why isn't go in a modal verb? And why is can a modal verb and why isn't go a modal verb, for example? Why are these ones modal verbs and other ones not modal verbs? What's the difference? Okay, so there are a couple of simple differences. I mean, there's a basic difference in the meaning, but there's a couple of simple differences that you learn usually. First, which one of those is that you don't use to. No to. No no to after the modal verb. When infinitives come afterwards. Okay, so we have this with can, right? We talked about this with can. So we don't say I can to swim. We don't say that. We say I can swim. Right? Right, that's special. Usually, I go to swim once a month. Okay. Usually, you have to. If you have an infinitive, verb and then infinitive, you include the to. But with modal verbs, you don't do that. Not a modal, so you do include this to here. Okay, clear? Okay, so that's one thing. That's one essential thing. The other thing is how you make questions and negatives. This is simple stuff. I think you know this already, but just as a review to remember this. So when you don't say, do you can swim, what do you say? That's wrong. Okay, this is wrong. You know that, right? This is wrong. What do you say? Can you swim, right? So, yeah. And how about this? Do you say this? Is that right? Well, no, I crossed it out, right? Yeah. All right. So we form questions and negatives in a special way. The same as we do with to have and to be. Well, have with the perfect and to be all the time. So this is true. What else is special about them? It's always about the meaning is always about probability in the future. Meaning is about just the likelihood, the probability, the somehow it's some kind of like a future in percentages. We're talking about future and probabilities. Probability. Do you know what a probability is? Probability. Sort of. Probability is like the percent. Well, how about likely? Do you know what likely means? Likely. It's like if something's likely, it's more than 50% chance that it will happen. It's likely there's more than a 50% chance that something will happen, right? Probability is just in general the percentage chance of something. It actually doesn't have to be happen, just it's more than possible. Possible means there's at least 1% chance that it can happen. That's possible. Yeah. Or be. It can also be. Not just happen, but also be. Of the verb, whatever the verb is. Action or state. All right. So it's always kind of about the future. Even if you talk about an ability like can, you're talking about your ability to do something later, right? It's always about an ability. I mean, sorry, it's always about the future. It's always about the future, and it's some. I mean, you could say possibility or obligation, but you can, on some level, you can put those in the same category. If you're more obligated, there's a higher chance that it will happen. Some possibility or obligation. Obligation, you know this word, right? Obligation. Obligation in Russian is pretty close. Wow, обязательство, обязательство. Okay, so it's always um, about these kinds of things. It's really uh, there's the modal verbs and the future are more or less the same thing. If you look at on some level, let's say, are the same thing. Not we don't use them for exactly the same purposes, but they're pretty. They have on some level they're pretty close. So if you look at how we make the future, we use will, right, to make the future. That's one of our modal verbs. So that's just one type of future that we have. And if we say can, that's an ability to do something in the future. Should, it's better if you do something in the future. We have a hypothetical meaning in there also. May and might, it's possible that something, you may do something, you have permission to do something. And then might and could, we have this ability mixed with hypothetical. So there's always the future. If we take the simple ones, can, will, shall, may, these are exactly about the future. And then these other ones, must too, I guess you can put in that category. And these other ones are just, if you take could, might, the other meaning of may, which is possibility in the future. Anyway, let's talk about these meanings first, then we can. Yes, you can. Let's talk about all this. Okay, so let's talk about the meanings now, the individual meanings of these. So Can. What have we said? What does can mean? What do you remember? What do you know? It's a pretty easy one. What does can mean? Yeah. What does can mean? Yeah, let's say ability. Yes, present tense, ability. Yeah, and like we've said, kind of about the future. Okay. What about could? Yeah. Well, it's not the same. You can use it both times, but the meaning is different in those two times. Yeah. Let me just tell you, and then and give you examples. And that's probably going to be the most efficient way to do this. All right. So I can swim. We've used this example already, right? So this would be a good example with can. So could, it has two main meanings. There's this is okay. Let's talk about all of them. Okay. So one is, let's do it this way, I guess. So one meaning is ability in the past. So in this way, it is just the past of can. Okay. Not always, but in this time, it is the past of can. So ability in the past, like I could run fast when I was a teenager. So that's about an ability that existed in general. Okay, this is always going to be actually a general ability in the past. You can't use this for specific situations in which you had an ability in the past. So if you say, um, let me see, what would the example be? Um, well, okay, the classic one from the book is there was a dog in the road. But luckily, I could turn the car out of the way. Okay, this is wrong actually. You can't do that. Because why? This is not a general ability we're talking about. This is a specific situation. This is a specific situation. And you can't use that for specific situations. All right? This is something you're going to want to remember. You're going to see this in the exercises. So what do we have to say instead? You need to say something was able. or you could also say manage to. Okay, so the point is general abilities that exist in the past. That's one meaning of could. It's not general, doesn't work. All right. Next one. Next meaning. How could we use could in the present or about the future? You mentioned that. How do you think we could do that? All right. Well, let's look at the example, and then let's put the meaning in there. Like, it could. There are a lot of clouds in the sky. It could rain. What meaning is this? Is this about, what is this about? Is this an ability? Yeah, in what way is it general? We're talking about a possibility. Now or future. So we could also say she's late. She could be in traffic. So this one, it could rain. This is about later, and she could be in traffic. This is about right now. It's, but you're gonna find out in the future. So I don't know. It's just whatever. It's just a possibility. Speculating, thinking, guessing what the different possibilities are, and you're saying this was one of the possibilities. So anyway, possibility. This is different. This is different. Ability, possibility. These are different things. No, no. It could rain. Rain is a verb. Rain is a verb. It happens. Yeah. Okay. All right. So um, that's those ones. So we still have a few more. So will. It's just for the future. It used to have its own kind of meaning, but it doesn't really. All right. Would. These ones are not that interesting right now. So we can just quickly talk about these ones. Would can be future in the past, or it can be a hypothetical situation. Do you understand this word hypothetical? In the present. By itself in the present. We can also put that in the past with a special construction, which we'll learn about. Okay, next interesting one is should. All right, so what does should mean? Yeah. What kind of sentence would you use shall with? Yeah, make a sentence with, try to make a sentence with shall. Yeah. Like shall we dance, for example, right? Shall we dance, for example? Shall. I said shall. Shall we dance? So these are cases when it might be used. Um, shall we dance, for example? Shall we go there or that place? But um, it's it's not fluent. If a native speaker would not say that unless they're very old. They're very old from a different time. This is not modern, current, fluent English to use this word shall. And even those people who are using that old language will only use it in those situations. So it's not very useful anyway. Um, so my recommendation is no. No, it's the opposite thing. It's like it was part of a more sophisticated culture when people used it, and now we don't live it in this sophisticated culture anymore. IQ decreasing, like 15 points in the past 200 years, most likely. But we have to fit the times. Why IQ decrease? Why is IQ decreasing? Because IQ is decreasing. Because IQ is decreasing. I'm not sure that's really the reason, but well, how do you know? That's why I'm asking you to give me examples. The meaning is really, what is the meaning of shall? Well, if it's a good word, why? What is the meaning there? The meaning is some combination of um, uh, it's like a command and saying it's a command essentially with shall. Yeah. Well, look. Uh, in that case, it even is a command because it's a command from the circumstances. If you say, "Shall we dance?" Do the circumstances command that we dance? So it is a command, and I don't know. It's not part of our culture maybe anymore to give commands, but there's no meaning that really fits the current culture and use of language. We can't tell somebody, "You shall do this," like God. It's like God telling somebody, thou shalt do this, thou shalt do that. It's not the way people talk anymore. It's just gone. Don't worry about it. It's gone forever, maybe. Maybe it'll come back, who knows. But for now, for our lifetime, we can ignore it. So um, we can forget that one. So let's talk about should. Ah, no, if you say you shall do this, you're saying you will do this because I'm telling you to do this, essentially. You should do it and you will do it because I'm commanding you. Okay? So should is a little bit different. It's should it's the past of shall, first of all. And when we do that, then we talk in a hypothetical way, which is why we talk in a polite way, or which is what we do to talk in a polite way. So hypothetical. Did I ask you? You know the meaning of hypothetical? It's very similar in Russian. Okay. All right. So should is hypothetical shall, but that's not what you need to remember. Just to remember the meaning of should is it's better if. That's all. Just think about it like that. It's better if. So you should you should study before your exams. It's better if you study for your exams. No, that's not the. No, no, no. That's different. Have to is a strong obligation. Yeah, have to is strong. Should is not strong. Not really. No. It's better if. That's not strong. It's like do what you want, but it's better if you do this. Okay. Yeah, we don't use must. It's like in that way. We don't use must in that way. That's what you shouldn't. It's not fluent. All right, I'll tell you what to use must for in a minute. All right, so you should study for your exams. You shouldn't eat too much fast food. I mean, is that like have to? No, I'm just telling somebody it's better if you don't eat this bad food. All right, that's not strong at all. It's better if, that's all. You shouldn't eat too much fast food. It's not very strong at all. I'm just telling somebody it's better if this. Okay, if we want to say something strong, then let's do it. Softer, you want to say, right? Well, look, don't say softer than have to because it's not like have to. Have to, you have to do something. It's an obligation. It's okay. Should is not an obligation. It's just we're telling somebody this is better. Okay, ought to has the same meaning as should. So you ought to use ought to sometimes. It's better if you do this. You ought to eat healthier. Like should. Just yeah, but no to. You should ought to. Well, so that's the same. Okay, next one is maybe. I don't know. I use it. I don't know how often I use it. But sometimes I notice that I'm using ought to. But yeah, you're right. Should is used a lot more often. All right. We let's talk about must now. hmm So must is not obligate an obligation. I mean, this is not really wrong. It's not wrong to say that, but it's not fluent. You're gonna sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you know. That's what we want to avoid, you know. Have I told you this? You want to avoid sounding like, or who's that boxer in Rocky Four? Did you see Rocky Four? Actually, I don't remember if he ever spoke in English. I think so. I think he spoke in just a few words, right? But you know, you can tell he's like, who was that? Yeah, it was like Russian and yeah, even Drago. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking of. Yeah, you don't want to sound like Ivan Drago or Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? That's you don't want that, or do you? I don't know. It's yeah, yeah, yeah. I do all the time. Yeah, maybe not the name. It's fictionalized, you know, but that is how they look. That I have a student right now, and I teach at a company, and he looks exactly like this guy. Actually, one of my Lithuanian students looked just like this guy too. One of my Uh, is he? But is he? You mean he doesn't look? He looks less. It may be right. Uh, that's maybe right. This Lithuanian student who looked like him. Yeah, he really looks like Lithuanian, like Baltic, like a combination. He, yeah, I see your point. He looks, but no, but there's something different. There's something different. I wonder what he actually is. Is he actually Russian? Yeah, you're right. He is by Dolph Lundgren. Yeah, who's Swedish actually. Yeah, yeah. Okay, you have a point. Well, he is Scandinavian. Yeah, 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 yeah. I guess with that haircut and everything. Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, so we don't use this. You don't want to sound like these guys when they're in the movies. You know, you don't want to sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, he sounds like that all the time. Or you don't want to sound like Ivan Drago. Okay, when he speaks English. All right. So don't use must because that sounds like these guys. All right. You want to sound like more fluent. All right. So don't use it for obligations. So what you do going to use it for is deductions. I haven't told you this before. You want to use it for deductions. Use for deductions. Yeah, right, right. So, right, right, exactly. So, like Sherlock Holmes. Right. So, there are a lot of people in that restaurant. It must be good. So, oh, no, not just general situation. You can also say, he's not answering the phone. You can say he's not answering the phone. He must, yeah, about the restaurant. He's not answering the phone. He must be sleeping. No, 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 no. Right. So, example you made. No, no. Well, it is, but we're making a deduction that we really strongly think that he's sleeping. Just like with the restaurant, we really strongly think that the restaurant is good, and with in this case, we really strongly think that he's sleeping. Maybe like for example, so look. Look, not he is sleeping. He is sleeping, we know 100% he is sleeping. We're making the statement that he is sleeping. All right? But if we say must be, we say, look, we're making this judgment, we're making this deduction that he's sleeping. We don't really know for sure, but we're making this deduction. Yeah, it's a guess, but it's a strong guess, right? It's a strong guess. So like, look, it's 2 a.m. All right, he's not answering the phone. All right, It's 2 a.m. He's not answering the phone. We're calling him. He's not answering the phone. He must be sleeping. This is a very, very reasonable conclusion. It's not 100%, but we can make this conclusion, with a lot of certainty. So, um, that's what we want from must. All right. So today, all we're gonna have time for, we're just gonna talk about the meanings. Next time, we're gonna need to, or maybe we'll talk about past modals too. No, we don't have time. We're gonna do just meanings today. All right. So, May. What does that mean? That was this. What is the meaning of May? Mm-hmm. Oh wait, sorry. While we're on must. Wait. While we're on must still. Okay. What do we use instead of must? Yeah. For obligations, I mean. Okay, not for deductions. For deductions, we use it. What do we use instead of must for obligations? I mean, have to. This is the strongest obligation that we have. Okay. Well, you okay? You can. Right. This is another detail. You can use this have to for deductions also. So you can say he has to be sleeping, but that would not be an obligation. That would also be a deduction. Okay, so I'm telling you to use have to for obligations. So you have to do your homework. You have to. You have to follow the law. It's it's Arnold Schwarzenegger or what's his name, Ivan Drago. Yeah, you can always use that for deductions, but let's not make it more complicated than we have to. Just use must for deductions and have to for obligations. The strongest obligation that we have. If we want to make it stronger, you can add some details like you have to do your homework, or uh, you're gonna fail the class. Like some kind of strong reason why they have to do it. But that's just for the word itself. That's the strongest. All right, now may. What does may mean? Hmm. Not really. It doesn't have. It's not the same as can. It's permission. It's permission. It's an ability from permission. This is one meaning of it. From permission. Permission is somebody lets somebody do something. Yeah. Pozvolenie. Yes, as if you say may I, then someone has to give you permission. Okay, so yeah, the actually, I see what you're thinking, and it's a little bit true. We also use can for the same thing. We also use can for permission, but may is permission only. Okay, can be permission. It can also be, here, let's put that up here with can. Ability present tense. It also can be permission. If you're giving permission. Yeah, if you're giving permission. If you're giving permission, if you're only telling them that they have an ability, then that's not right. Then you should say you can do it. If you're giving permission. No, who said anything about might? No, that's a different meaning. Might. Yeah. It's separate. There's two different separate meanings totally. Okay. So, uh, yeah. The other, well, let's do it this way since we started. The other ability, the other use of may is for possibility. And this is exactly the same as could. Same meaning as could. So, for possibility. So, it may rain. This is not permission, this is a different meaning. This is possibility, just like could. It may rain today. Um, she may be in traffic. Her cell phone may be dead. Like battery. It's dead. All right. No, no. Maybe is. It comes from that, but maybe is just it's an adverb. This is an adverb, and it means yeah. It just means it's possible. This is possible. It's possible that. So yeah, it's pretty clear. It's pretty close meaning, but separate those things. Maybe is don't think of that's not a verb. Right? This is an adverb made from that verb, from two verbs, may and be. But it's not, it doesn't fit into this what we're talking about here. All right, let's hurry up so we can get some speaking practice today. So um, you just look at these. You're going to have some exercises, and with these. I'm just going to throw you in. We're not going to talk about everything yet. Just start doing the exercises. There will be some things that you don't understand, and then we'll talk about them next lesson. Just try to understand the best you can, and then when that's the approach we take with modal verbs. It's the best approach because it's not like the other ones where there's one model and then you just have to use that model correctly to get the right answer all the time. Here is you have to remember you have to learn a lot of different details. So Um, that's how we'll do it. So next one is might. So might is the same as may, except it's not for permission. It's not for permission. So it's only for possibilities. So you can just change all of these mays to might. It may rain is the same as it might rain. She might be in traffic. Also same as may be in traffic. And her cell phone might be dead. Same as may be dead. No difference. No difference. No important difference. No difference worth thinking about. Yes. And could. Yeah. Yeah. May, might, and could also. Yeah. Well, that's because you can't use it for permission. You can use it in questions if it's a question about a possibility. You can't use it in the question you're thinking about, which is a question for permission, because, like I just said, I'm saying for possibility, there's no difference. May, might, and could for possibility, no difference. Exactly the same meaning. Okay, like I said, for permission, you can't use might. You can only use may for permission. Also can. Okay. So look, just take that, and we'll do the exercises. All right, and that's it actually, because we did must already. So we'll start with this. These are the essential meanings. This is the core. So do the exercises. We need to learn some more things. We need to learn what we need to do in some specific situations. There's some more that you need, like need to. We didn't talk about need to. Well, I'll just tell you this now. Let's put this in the must category. Okay, do not say mustn't. This is not fluent either. This is like shall, okay? Nobody says that. So what should you say instead of mustn't? Let's look at an example of what you shouldn't say. Okay? You mustn't eat too much McDonald's. Or no, because should is too weak. Must is strong. Mustn't is like a strong must is a strong obligation. And so what can you say? Can you say you don't have to? No, that's wrong. That means you don't have the obligation. You don't have. This is wrong. This is not right. So what you want to say is can't. For a negative obligation, you can't eat too much McDonald's. This is what you want to use. What you want to say for instead of mustn't. Okay, don't have to. So can't means negative obligation. Okay, don't have to means negative obligation exists, let's say. Okay, negative obligation is there. The obligation not to do something exists. Okay, if you say don't have to, that means that obligation does not exist. All right, you'll see some examples where you need to know this. So, okay, so don't use mustn't. Instead, can't. Negative obligation does exist. Uh, and don't have to. No obligation is there. No, but it is a negative obligation. It is there. Uh-huh. I mean, what's the alternative? That it's an ability? Well, that's not logical. Yes, they can eat too much McDonald's. They do have the ability to do it, but we're telling them that they have an obligation not to do it. The other meaning of can is ability, but that meaning does not, it's not logical here. It doesn't make sense, doesn't fit. So, well, maybe parents can say it. Maybe anybody, maybe a friend can say it. I mean, the obligation can be put by somebody else or can be put by God, right? You can't eat too much McDonald's or you're going to die, right? That's God putting, that's the obligation from God. You're talking about it, but God is putting that obligation, like the truth. Truth is putting that obligation. So, different ways of thinking about it. All right, so this is one thing I want to tell you. Also, don't say needn't. Right. Okay, good. You see, so you see, right, exactly. So you see examples of that. Right. So what should you say instead of needn't? What should you say? What does it mean? It means don't need to, and that's just yeah, that's what you should say. Don't need to. Yeah, yeah. It's dead. Okay, it's like, and if you use it, you sound like Ivan Drago. I don't know. I I don't know. I wouldn't say that. So, all right. Anyway, so this is the first part. Um, we still need to learn about past modals. How do we put a lot of these in the past, and some other details. So we can talk about that next time. Next time we should do past modals. Need to is not really modal. So, well, let's wait. Okay, next time we'll do it.